Welcome back to the DGD podcast. As always, Robert Reynolds, Juan Daniels. Kobe Pierce took spring break off, apparently. We're the old heads, apparently. With that being said, though, welcome into the DGD podcast. Listen, this past weekend, I think it was year two of Dawgs dominating the combine, right? Yeah, we got a lot to break down and recap. But I do want to start with this. Juan, overall, what were your thoughts overall on the combine from Georgia's perspective?
We had a lot of winners for sure. Just had some losers, but I think that overall, again, Georgia built, Georgia strong, so they came out and did exactly what they were supposed to do, and then showed why we had back-to-back national championships, and that's just because of the players that we had.
I know for me, right, starting off day one, right, when you look at Nolan Smith and Robert Beal, you start off really, really strong, right? And from day one till up until yesterday, right, day four, you got Broderick Jones, you got Kenny McIntosh looked great in on-field drills. From start to finish, it seemed like Georgia did it again. And I think this is going to be something that, folks around college football and the NFL need to understand. It's not going to stop, in my opinion. It's just not. Overall, I do want to ask your thoughts, and we're going to talk a little bit. We're going to do a little brief comparison on some other things regarding some other teams that I thought were some interesting things to take away. But overall, who surprised you the most?
I would say Nolan Smith. I mean, that was probably the biggest shock. Coming off of that shoulder surgery, you didn't know how he was going to, perform at the draft. My favorite part of him was, they showed the Georgia guys back in the locker room, filming it and cheering him on, and then of course he runs that excellent time, and that right there was fantastic, which shows a lot about who Georgia is. And you see all these articles and see all this crap about, Kirby has lost control of the team or all this other kind of stuff. Those guys love each other. And that is the environment that Kirby has fostered, is an environment of love, taking care of each other, cheering for each other. And so they expected him to do well. And I think that he did very, very well. But he was the biggest surprise to me. What about you?
I think Darnell Washington, in my opinion, made the catch of the combine. And I mean, not just this year. I'm talking like a long time. I haven't seen that kind of catch in general, right, in the combine. I mean, obviously, when you go to look at NFL and you see these catches, and things like that, that's one thing. I'm talking about from a pure combine perspective. That one-hand catch was absurd. But to me, I think that was the pinnacle of what was being built prior to, right, for his performance on the field. Because to be 6'6", 6'6" and 5/8", right, which is basically, 6'7", and I think he came in at 264. Right, when you took his performance and you put the 4.65 on him, and then you put I think he actually I want to say it was the not the three cone, but the shuttle drill was like third from everybody there in regards to like receivers and stuff like that. So you're looking at like Jackson Smith and Jigbo was the top one from a receiver tight end standpoint. Darnell Washington at 264 had the third best time. And then you go see him absolutely pulverize the sled, right, from a blocking perspective. You sit there, you see him make all these catches, things like that. You see, to me, if there was any doubt from anyone that Darnell is not a round one tight end, that right there just changed everyone's mind. You have to believe that. So to me, and honestly, it's something that we hadn't even seen at Georgia, but we wanted to talk about, right? We wanted to see him get in the red zone targets. Fittingly enough, right, the drill that he made, that one-hand catch, was a mock end zone drill. And so, if I'm an NFL scout or if I'm an NFL team in general, I'm just letting you know right now, I'm salivating pairing him up with a good quarterback. If I have a good quarterback, that is a player that I want on my team. To be 6'7", to make that kind of play, athletic ability. Juan, I think he may even top you on that one. Like, I've seen you make some one-handers, but that was ridiculous.
Joe Huff said, I think that Big O made himself a lot of money at the combine. I agree with you. Just to see him do that sled comparison to those other tight ends, that was huge. Motivated, dedicated, said he wished Darnell could have stayed one more year, and hopes that Delp steps up this fall. I'll tell you what, don't worry about Delp. Georgia built, Georgia strong. He's gonna be a player. But again, like I said, we had some guys that you could tell that they're Georgia Bulldogs with the way that they performed at the combine, the way that they conducted themselves, the way that they just go out there with that swagger. You can tell who's Georgia made.
I'm looking overall, and I'm glad Motivated Dedicated brought that up, because, like, if you look at the tight end, just if we thought Darnell was a spectacle this year, just wait until Bowers goes to next year. Like, that's going to be ridiculous. Like, he might – I think he will – I'm going to go ahead and make it now. He's going to be the fastest tight end, and it would not surprise me if he runs into 4.4s. I'm calling that way too early. If he partakes in the combine, which I don't see why he wouldn't, but you never know. I'm just going to make that call now. I think he would run 4.4s. Juan, but we take – right, we've talked about a couple folks already, but you take Stetson Bennett. I know that he's the bane of your existence. I know this, but he didn't do himself any wrong with his performance. I think, in my opinion, he proved a lot of narratives wrong. Right? I always heard these. He's too small. He doesn't have the arm strength. When you take the statistics and you see the 59 mile per hour throw, and you pair that, that's literally the same as Will Levis, one of the top picks in the draft, apparently. You sit there, you watch him throw the deep ball accurately, might I add. You sit there and you see that right there. The fact that he jogged a 4.67 was laughable to me, because I don't know if you paid it any attention, Juan, or watched it for that matter. But my man didn't even have track shoes. He literally put the black Adidas on that he worked out with on the field, and he literally, you watched him take off, and then like 30 yards in, he just kind of eases up, and you kind of even see it too. He just eases up and cruises to a 4.67. I'm like, this guy don't even give a shit about the 40. And I think, overall, coming into the combine, it wasn't a matter of how fast he was. It was, can he throw? So, maybe he saved himself, to throw. But overall, my takeaway was he hit a lot of throws accurately, and he looked calm and with some zip too. And I think after all is said and done, he definitely, his stock should be going up compared to the first group that he was in. You had Max Duggan in that group, you had Will Levis as well. Stetson and Will Levis were the two, in my opinion, that had the best overall in that first group. But I think you could argue that Stetson had a better performance overall. Will Levis made the deep ball look effortless too, which obviously we kind of come to expect that with him. And we're not going to talk about our Gator garbage friends, but they have something to hang their hat on with one player. Everyone else was fucking garbage. But that's just, neither here nor there. But is there, I guess my question, and for the brigade as well, what were some things that stood out to you, and maybe not the best way? Were there any things that you saw that could have, left to be desired?
As far as just
as far as performance, yeah. As far as
performance, or just
do I know?
It's whose performance?
No, it's just in general, just any one specific.
It's hard to, it's kind of hard to really judge quarterbacks. So I know a lot of people were making a big deal about quarterbacks, but you're throwing on air. It's not one-on-one. You don't have any pressure. You're just throwing the ball on air. You're a quarterback. You know it. I mean, you can sit down there and do that every day. I coach a 7-on-7 team at Buford, and everything that they did in the combine, we do that every day for warmups. So to sit there and give anybody really kudos. I know they made a big deal about C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson and all of that, but to sit there and say somebody stood out or did a certain way based off of throwing it on air, I mean, I don't really buy into it. The other part,
and I think
we're talking about statistics. We have on this show talked about how trash Will Levis is. We felt like he was some pretty much trash. So to compare a 59 to a 59 to a guy Will Levis, and you're comparing him hand to hand, you're basically saying that you're comparing trash to trash. is basically when we're talking about arm strength. So
because those statistics, right? And this is why I think you're onto something, because statistically, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, DTR, I call him DTR for short, but from UCLA, apparently threw the strongest at 62.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I know, right? It's the combine, it's one thing, but this is where the combine results you have to take with a grain of salt, because you sit there, you look at it, like you said, it's on air, right? Like, now at the same time, arm strength is one thing, right? Like the deep ball, right? And accuracy, it might add. I think that's key, but again, it's not in game. It's not in game. So when you look at it, right, that shows you have pure strength, but what does it look like in game? How does it translate? And I think it's where you're going with it, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't do anything. Also, too, like you can't go out there and judge a receiver and say, "Oh man, you ran some great routes," or you did. Again, there's no pressure. Anybody can go out and run routes. Anybody can go and make them look crisp. They can make them look a certain way. But what does it look like, when you're actually trying to select somebody for your football team? So, but that's where, these pro days come into play. At the combine, I participated in the combine. I ran routes, I caught passes. But in pro day, you go one-on-one. And in pro day, you're going to throw Pascal and you're going to throw against some of the top guys. So even though it may be Georgia's pro day, there's going to be a chance that somebody's going to come from Pennsylvania. Somebody's going to come from a certain place because they know that how many scouts are going to be there.
Well, yeah, you had Prather Hudson last year. Prather Hudson was at Illinois and comes back down to Georgia for his
Exactly. So you're going to have good on good. You're going to have a realistic look at, so if you're going to do combine things, like I'd rather have that happen if you're going to televise it to say, okay, this is how they can make those throws, this outside, this deep throw, this slant, this square end. So the quarterbacks, I just kind of take them off the table. Same thing with the receivers. Like I can't judge a receiver off of a route that he runs and then you catch it or you don't catch it. I mean that doesn't matter. Those are routine pitch and catch things. So that's a little bit. Now your measurables and your speed, that's something completely different. Like I can go with that. But as far as, disappointing, I would say, even though Kenny McIntosh did well, he just didn't outshine Jamar Gibbs and Bijan Robinson. I mean, it was, I really feel like, and again, a lot of this stuff is on air. A lot of it is drills or whatnot, but I think it kind of dropped him down a little bit as far as being impressive. Now, the great thing about that, though, is that, Kenny McIntosh is going to be a steal for somebody.
Oh, no doubt.
He's going to go in and he's going to be absolutely outstanding. And every person that gets drafted by Georgia, just like last year, they're Georgia built, you're getting a steal. And I don't care if you get them number one, if you get them, in the late, Mr. Irrelevant, you're getting a steal when you're getting somebody.
I mean, hell, I love how you brought that up, because even Mr. Irrelevant, Tay Crowder, was shining for the Giants. I think they let him go, but he was shining his rookie year.
Yeah.
So, this notion, right, that when you get a Georgia player, you're getting a guy that's ready to go. And I think over the past few years, for this, might I add, not just these past 2 years where Georgia's really been thinking about it, right? Like Georgia's been advertised over and over and over all the time, rightfully so. These past 2 years that we're familiar with, but you look back, like you said, Tay Crowder, right? Like a former running back gets transferred over to linebacker, gets Mr. Irrelevant, and then next thing you know, he's flashing as a freshman. or rookie, excuse me. So you take what, obviously what Georgia's doing, and some team is going to get a value pick right there. Hell, did you hear the story about Jamari Sawyer? I think it was the Chargers GM was talking about it.
Mm-mm.
So basically, long story short, I ain't gonna go the whole story, but long story short, there obviously Jamari was a 6th-round pick. If you're not familiar with Jamari Sawyer, practically saved the Charger season as a rookie. But obviously, they're waiting till the 6th pick. The GM calls Kirby and was like, "Hey, we've got to talk." Talking about his medical situations, right? Basically, like, "Hey, we got to talk." Like, and Kirby promised him, he's like, "Jamari's a real deal," So they take the shot on him, get him in the 6th round as a rookie, doing what he just did as a 6th round pick. Even made this comment that he should have went and probably got him up a couple rounds early, right? I know we had some, I did. I thought Jamari Sawyer should have went 4th, 5th round. And from hearing that, now you're starting to make sense, right? So wherever Kenny goes, I think you're going to see some value there. You look at, hell, I know this sounds crazy. One, I don't know if you're a Dallas fan, but when you take a look at the situation with Zeke right now and how they're feeling like he might be on his last whim, you've got Tony Pollard. There's several teams that could use running backs, and especially what Kenny Mack brings to the table, right? But I do want to take some comments here as well. I see Joe Huff says, in his opinion, this is not one of the better quarterback classes. Juan, do you feel like this quarterback class is overhyped so
big
far?
time. Big time. And I say that because, from think about the last true Ohio State quarterback that has come out and been successful in the NFL. Bryce Young is another guy. He's good, but his size is what's going to hurt him. And a lot of knocks on him is he going to be able to take those hits when it actually when it comes to. And then from those two, I mean, the drop off is really, really significant. The only thing that helps Will Levis really is the fact that he has been in a pro football system.
He got beat out by Sean Clifford twice, though.
Well, but I'm saying that's the only thing that helps him is that he's been in that type of system. Same thing with Alabama. So the transition is going to be a little bit easier for them. Same thing with Hooker. Hooker will be able to adjust based off of Heupel's system. However, but it's just not. You're not looking at a QB-rich draft here.
I think next year's about to be stupid though for quarterbacks.
Next year is going to be sick with
Caleb Williams, Drake May,
Quinn Ewers, all of those guys. Yeah, that's going to be
stupid.
That's going to be something serious. So I agree with you on that, Joe. And then also too, Joe is asking, is Richardson really going to be one of the first QBs taken? He and Levis were really bad in college. They're going to look at Richardson as a project, and
you have to think that.
For some reason, they're looking at him as the next Lamar Jackson / Michael Vick type guy, and they're looking at him as a project, and that's going to end up hurting a team. They're going to spend a lot of money on a guy that they're going to realize he's not reading defense as well. He's also playing a lot of backyard football. That's going to hurt him. Will Levis, I will give him a little bit of grace. I mean, he did play with a separated shoulder, and he's a fighter. He got knocked around in a couple of games, but he came back in and he played. So he's one of those gritty, tough guys. But will he be able to make it through seasons and not be injured? So that's going to be Kobe. Do we plan on matching white? That's going to be one of those things. But I agree. Motivated, dedicated said Richardson needs to play tight end. Richardson to me is going to be like your Tebow. Tebow should have, instead of playing quarterback, should have went and played tight end. And he then tried to go and play tight end with the Denver Broncos, and it didn't necessarily work out for him. But that's a place I think for Richardson. He needs to go and change his position. That's probably what's going to help him.
I mean, like you look at it though, right? Like the litmus test, right? Understanding progress. Like one, as a quarterback with a receiver, the measurables are awesome, right? Like Anthony, this is the last I'm going to talk about it because it's Florida. But what I saw from him was very athletic, right? Very athletic, like ultra athletic ability. But when you put him in a situation where he needs to step back and actually go through progressions and go through reads, he cannot do that as it stood right now, at least against Georgia. And I would say that Georgia is probably the closest thing in college football to what you're going to see at the next level. And he just couldn't do it. If I'm an NFL franchise and I pick him in the top 10 like he's expected to go, that is if my job's on the line, I am nervous. If I'm a head coach and I have no say or some shit like that, I'd be nervous as hell.
Well, they're probably hoping it's going to be the same as a Jalen Hurts, because if we're honest, had these measurables, he had all of these things, that the same thing that, not the height and weight, but he had all these things that Richardson. Yeah. And then of course he was able to be successful, but then again, look at the offense and it's tailored. I mean, it is, soft, safe throws. Every now and then you'll take a shot down the field around. You got a great back, and then you just play really, really good defense. But it's nothing spectacular. Yeah. It's nothing just out of the way. I saw here where Emperor said that Kenny was still. You can tell, but he feels he'll run better at the pro day. I agree with that. The other thing too is, again, on that pro day, Kenny will have an opportunity to go against linebackers, and he'll have an opportunity to go where he can truly show what he can do to really just kind of separate himself. But the feeling leaving the combine is, he kind of slipped. He'll have an opportunity just to kind of make it up.
I think if he gets in the 4.5s, I think things will be even itself out easily. Like, I understand.
Well, I'm not necessarily worried about his 40 time. It was more, when it can't, you're head-to-head Gibbs and Bijan Robinson, that's just a tough deal. But again, even from a speed wise, Michelle and Nick Chubb weren't speedsters. But
Nick Chubb, you see it, Nick Chubb's one of the best backs in the league. Speaking of, by the way, we talked about backs. Did you know this? This is how the game is evolving. Derrick Henry is now looking at possibly getting shopped by the Tennessee Titans. They're looking at moving him possibly. So these full run only type running backs, those are long gone now. So when you take a Kenny Mack, the new era of NFL is about to fit him perfectly. So again, we talked about a team is going to be excited to get him. I'm just saying, there's an example.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting.
So we don't forget, it's Kobe's birthday. So happy birthday, Kobe! Birthday shout
Feliz
out.
Cumpleaños.
Yes,
Senor.
Yes. Yeah. So we don't forget.
As I take a sip of my 60-33 special. I'm just saying. But he's some. Oh, that's right. He's far away from us.
Yeah, he's far away. He's 2 hours behind.
Something like that. Yeah, I think it's right. Juan, I want to bring up a name that people may have forgotten about. And what I mean by that is this: when you look at Georgia, you have Nolan Smith, you have Darnell Washington, you got Broderick Jones, absolutely just dominating. But Kearis Jackson, going back to your realm here, receivers. Kearis Jackson put up a solid time. I want to say it was like mid 4.5s, which I don't think we expect him to be a blazer. You didn't, right? But I thought he looked good. But I think, do you think that would be the same situation as him, him being in the receiving pool, the same as what Kenny Mack looked like in, say the running back? Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I thought he did fine.
He did well. You'll see again in his pro day. The other thing that helps Kearis though is he's a punt returner. So he's going to be a punt returner. They're also probably looking at him as a gunner. So he's going to be one of those ones that, his first thing may not be a receiver, but he'll, make the special teams and then work his way to, being in that rotation. The other thing too, his blocking, his physicality is what's, is going to be what these teams are actually looking for. Because in the NFL, it's if you don't block, if you're not willing to block, then don't look at playing. So look at you really want to see a good story. Look up Ayuk that played for the 49ers. And everybody knows Deebo Samuel is a monster. He's that guy. And Ayuk's problem is he didn't want to block. So they were looking at shipping him off. And then all of a sudden, Ayuk became one of the best blockers. And you can see him blocking all the way down the field as Kittles or Deebo Samuels is scoring. So that's another thing that Kirby really, really emphasized from his receivers is you're going to block. Forget about catching passes. You're going to block. And that's one of the things that Kearis Jackson is going to bring. And they'll have an opportunity to see that.
Well, I mean, that's another, I think, overall, right? Like Kirby's as I wouldn't say vanilla, but like as non-entertaining. It's not your Ohio State. It's not your USC type offense, what you're expecting from your receivers. But the proof is in the pudding, in my opinion, on this. What Kirby's asking of these receivers are getting them drafted and they're going to the league, because the NFL understands that you're not going to be sitting here and being thrown to every play. You have to be able to block. So the fact that Kirby gets these receivers to block as well as they do, and while still being able to run routes and do this right here, and even from a running back's perspective, right? I think where was it? I think Motivated Dedicated, which he has a comment that I want to touch on in just a second too. But all these guys blocking as well as they do, it leads to success in the league. It keeps you occupied or employed. Excuse me. It keeps you employed. Motivated Dedicated brings up the biggest thing with NFL running backs is durability. Can he take the hits? Chubb is big enough to take the hits, referring to Kenny McIntosh. Now, my question is this. The durability aspect, one, does it benefit or does it hinder your success long-term in the NFL by how Georgia rotates the back so frequently?
Oh, it benefits. I mean, because you're not taking, you're not having that wear and tear. But again, going back to what Motivated Dedicated said, from durability, it's not just running the ball. A lot of people think it's, running the ball and taking those hits, but he's hitting blitz and linebackers. He's helping out with these defensive ends coming off and blitz and safeties that he's going, head to head. That can take a toll on you. And if you really want to see something outstanding, go back and watch that Ohio State game. And there were, especially on that last drive when, Stetson Bennett's back in the pocket, and those running backs do an unbelievable job of picking up blitzes. Unbelievable job of picking up blitzes. And again, Kirby is, his whole mindset is you're going to block, you're going to do exactly what you're supposed to do in order for us to be successful. If you don't want to do that, you can come over here and have a seat by me.
I mean, you can sit there and learn this offense, and I'll teach you how to be a coach. GA. I think Joe Huff brings up a good question here. Kind of moving on from running backs. Do we think Bobby Bill worked his way to being drafted? I say yes, but my question to this is, could you see him go from day 3 to late day 2 would be the question, because that 40 time, right, is going to make NFL teams look back at his tape. It's going to make them have to go back and we're like, what did we miss? I mean, I thought he was going to be 4.6, 4.7 guy. He comes out running mid 4.5. We're like, where the hell is this on tape?
Yeah.
So when you go back, like I said, it might be me, but I do think teams are going to have to really take a look at it, right? Because you saw the speed. So you sit there and, I mean, he was what? I think he was in the 240s. I think he was about 250.
Yeah.
From a measurable perspective. So you sit there, you see him run a mid 4.5 at roughly 250, and then you go translate it onto the tape. And I think the key here for Robert Bill is this. When he played, you could see he was thinking too much. Because if you watch him on tape, he is slower than everyone else in regards to reaction. So in my opinion, this is going to come with more reps. The more reps he gets, the more comfortable he will become, the faster he will play. It will all transpire, and I think NFL teams know that, right? It's just what can he do, what can he not do is a question, right? I don't feel bad in the sense of coverage. I think he'll be just fine. You do have to be careful with these running backs now that are running 4.4s and stuff like that. That's going to be a question. But if you put him and block a tight end, I think you have a shot there, right? 250 pounds against the tight end is going to be a good matchup, especially at 4 or 5. But yeah, I think, Joe, to answer that question and summarize this, he's going to get drafted. It's just, is someone going to take a shot earlier than what we expected? I think he might be. I'm under the assumption he might be a 5th or 6th round pick, possibly. But with that kind of speed, it's going to make him go back and turn the tape on. And at that point, will somebody see something that makes them want to pull the trigger on him early and draft him earlier potentially? Juan, do you have any comment on Joe's question?
I agree. Like you said, thinking that he was going to come in at a 4.7 and ends up coming at a 4.5 was pretty good. But it just reminds me of a comment that Motivated Dedicated said earlier when he said, yeah, kudos to the strength and conditioning staff at UGA. They obviously know what they're doing. Let me just tell you right now, that has to be the hottest job right there in the country, is whoever is the strength and conditioning coach at UGA. If I were Kirby, I would make sure you aren't going anywhere. I'm going to pay you whatever you need to make sure that you don't go anywhere, because if he does and brings whatever he does at Georgia to somewhere else, that's going to be a problem. They do an excellent job. Again, these last 2 drafts have just been absolutely outstanding and completely Georgia dominated. So, and again, it doesn't just start just by training for the draft. I mean, it starts from day one once they get on campus, and then they're going through this process. So I really think that Beal will be drafted. I wouldn't say maybe late day 2, but probably day 3 and forward. Yeah. But like you said, a lot of these guys are going to start watching film. And then let's see how he performs on his pro day, and that's what's really going to be the
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought up the pro day as well, because my thing is and Georgia's getting into this point with NFL teams, especially at the linebacker position. The track record for these guys right now. I think Bill played D-line edge type guy, so he might be a Trey Scott guy, but if you move him to a backer, right? I think you'll find a way to get him to play. I think he can do that. But we talk about strength and conditioning. I'm going to compare this. It's time one. I wasn't going to do this, but I will. If you take away, we're going to take 2 fan bases here, Florida, Alabama. If you take away Anthony Richardson for Florida, your fastest time was Justin Shorter. 4.52, was your fastest. Both of your DBs, by the way, both of them, 4.7s. I think one was a 4.74, one was a 4.77 or something like that. That is slow. Brian Branch, I'm going to say 4.52 or something like that for Bama. Will Anderson was a 4.60. My question is, now I'm not going to say that I'm basing everything off of this, but when you take and you look at the speed that Georgia had at the combine and compare it, something's there. When you take Nolan Smith running a 4.39, when you take Robert Bill running a sub 4.6 at 250 or right around 250, right? Darnell Washington at 264 ran a 4.65. That's 0.05 of a second slower than Will Anderson. Like, you sit there and you start looking at these things. Hell, even Broderick Jones at 3.11 ran a 4.97. Like, I don't think Georgia had a player run the 40 under everyone was sub 5. There was not a single player that ran above 5 flat. That is moving, folks. And that's a lot of weight to be moving. So hats off to Georgia strength and conditioning and whoever these guys are coaching with. I'm just saying, I would take notes if you're in these guys' positions moving forward for your NFL drafts. Get with those guys.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, because Nolan Smith made a fuck ton of money, and even Robert Bill is, I think Stetson Bennett, Even Stetson Bennett, he ran a 4.67, and he looked like he let up and jogged. And Daniel Jeremiah and Rich Eisen both called it out. Looked like he let off. What does that mean? Could have seen a 4.5 maybe. Don't know. Not going to say because it didn't happen. But these guys can move. They can move. And it all starts with Georgia strength and conditioning and the fact that they get the fuck run out of them. And then two, whoever they're training with pre-draft combine, you got to take that into play.
Yeah.
Because those boys were moving.
Oh boy. That was crazy, yeah.
But let's see here. So let's see. Motivated, dedicated. Yeah, our guys bust their behind in the off season. That strength staff is awesome. And he also brings up a good point. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Just gonna leave that there. Juan, I wanna talk to you about this. Before we move from the combine, now you start looking into the draft and pro day first. Do you think the performances from the combine, who will do you see anyone not doing certain things at the pro day just because they did something so well? Like for instance last year as an example, Jordan Davis ran a 4.78. At that point, you knew he wasn't running a 40 at the pro day, right? Did you see anyone do anything or whatever the case may be that made you say, yeah, he ain't doing that again, or he might not need to do this?
Nolan Smith isn't running. He's not going to run.
No.
He doesn't need to, although he probably would run a faster time at his pro day than he would at the combine.
What's the cause for that one? What is it? Is it the turf situation or
yeah,
what?
The turf at the combine is usually it's almost like a thick carpet. It's weird. It's a thick carpet. Plus, again, you're looking at, you're running at your own place that you've practiced and been at for 3-4 years. So you're just kind of used to it, you just have a great feel for it versus the combine. The other thing a lot of people don't understand too is before you go and run, the things that get done to you, before you actually go run, I mean, you have basically been twisted and turned and almost to the brink of you feel like they're breaking something, because they just want to see, are you flexible? Are you durable? Like, do you have any broken bones? Do you have any of this? You have all of these things. So by the time that you run, you're almost hurting. So, when it comes to their pro day, they can run, much faster. Again, you'll also get an opportunity to see some one-on-ones. And then like, what are your throws going to look like? What are your catches going to look like? What are your routes going to look like, versus versus your corners, versus your safeties. Running backs versus linebackers, and so you'll get an opportunity to really see, some pass rush, some different things that you'll really get an opportunity just to kind of showcase yourself. And the thing that I can say that I could see translating is, even though it was on air, and the amazing catch that Darnell Washington made in the combine, I can see him doing that in a game. I can physically see him doing that in a practice or in a one-on-one session. Like, that was not a fluke. That was not, what you would necessarily call, just on air. I mean, he's just that physically talented. It doesn't even matter who was guarding him. He was bringing that thing down. So that's what you'll have an opportunity to see, when you get there. And also to know it's just not going to be a regular practice or a regular thing. Like, these guys are trying to make money. They're trying to make rosters. This is a livelihood. So you could best believe you are going to get the absolute best out of everybody that's going to be at that pro day.
Keep in mind that we have draft eligible players that weren't invited to the combine, a lot like a Warren Erickson. So your pro day, this is literally playing for your life. Like, this is literally the job interview of a lifetime for him.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So the fact that we had a couple guys not get invited, this is their chance. Come the pro day. Hey, show, because you know this. Every team's going to be represented, and if it wouldn't surprise me if you have head coaches or GMs from every place. Every team is going to have at least some high up, I would think.
Oh yeah, especially when it comes to the Georgia, combine. They're going to see Georgia kids, but you can best believe you're going to have some people all over, going out there to make a shot. And then who knows, like I said, you'll always have that one person that just kind of stands out. And even if they don't get drafted, they'll say, man, I remember watching him, at that pro day. Then you go back there and look at the film, and then they'll give you a shot to try to make something happen.
Because you got a pro day where all the coaches are going to be there too. I would assume every position coach is going to be there.
Oh yeah.
So not only, right, like if you look at the combine, the guys at the combine, they may call or whatever, depending on the situation. They probably won't even do that. They're literally just focused on that guy only. But when you're at your pro day, you have the luxury of having your position coach there, your head coach there, and they can fight for you. They can do these things for you to prove, like, hey, listen, he's worth the draft pick. He is worth it, right? Whereas at the combine in Indy, you're by yourself, right? So some of these guys, like I think you look at Kenny McIntosh. Kenny McIntosh, I think, will not only benefit from the pro day, but I do think that he will preserve his draft stock. I don't want to say that his performance was bad, because it was not. But when you compared it, like you said, Bijan and those other guys, he didn't seem to stand out.
Yeah.
And that sometimes is the issue. It's not that he's a bad player. You just had guys that were just better at that day, right? Excuse me. So I want to do something real fast. I'm gonna call out some names, and this is a way for the brigade to get interactive here as well. We're gonna piece this together, Juan. So I'm gonna break this out for you. We're gonna take post combine draft pick, like basically, for instance, Stetson Bennett. You still under the assumption he's undrafted.
Yeah,
I think he could go in, day 3, day 2, or whatever, right? We're going to try to do this for some folks. And what I want to do is take it and look after the combine and do the same thing after pro day and kind of track and see if we see some progression in our opinions, if we see some regression in our opinions. And it also gives the brigade a chance to let us know what you think. So let's do this, by the way. Let's start off with the quarterback position. Stetson Bennett. Are you still sticking with the undrafted?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Right now they have him as overall like the 17th quarterback. I guess overall, where and it's funny. Here's what's one of the guys that's in front of him is Lindsey Scott Jr. Lindsey Scott's son, who plays.
That boy was slinging it though.
Yeah. And slinging it. Yeah. So he's. I just really feel like just from a lot of it, just size. And even if there were some NFL scouts that saw him in that 40, just kind of looking lackadaisical, which is one of the things that they were saying about it. And then his, just kind of his attitude, that would be something that would be just concerning. Do I think that he'll have a shot, as an undrafted free agent? I think somebody will pick him up and give him a shot. As far as drafted, I don't see it, but, it'd be better if I were wrong.
So I want to ask you this question first. From a draft perspective, if we're saying someone's getting drafted, do we take the day route, whether it be day 1, day 2, day 3, or do we be elite and try to go specific round? What would you prefer?
Let's go. I would say, man, round would be tough.
Yeah.
Let's do day 1, day. Yeah, I would say day. Yeah.
Okay, so for the sake of this, we'll say days. So to explain this, day 1 is only first round. Day 2, second and third. Day 3, you have 4, 5, 6, and 7. Mm-hmm. So there is your breakdown for those that aren't aware. I've got Stetson right now post combine going day 3. I think, and I'm saying I think you can see early day 3 because there is going to be a team out there that might have a set quarterback, but can also look at Stetson for what he can bring, kind of similar like a Jake Fromm. And what I mean by that is an IQ pick, right? The Bills went out and said they picked Jake Fromm because of his IQ. However, I think Stetson can actually ball. He's got the arm. We saw that. And the fact that he's a proven winner. 2 national championships back to back. We've seen him make some throws, key plays, key drives. Someone I think is going to be willing to take a shot on that. It's just a question of where at, what system, right? Do they expect him to be and I expect him to be a backup, but that's not a problem. Listen, you can make a ton of money being a backup quarterback in the NFL. I'm just going to leave that there. But I've got him on day 3. I think maybe even early day 3.
Now, I'll ask you this. Would you feel the same about him if he played on any other team? If he were on Duke?
You know what?
Would you look at the combine and said, you know what? I think that guy right there looks like he's a early day 3 guy.
I try to look at it. I try to look and being as unbiased as possible. One, now are we taking away the winning perspective here too, or are we just looking at physical throwing?
Yeah, like physical throwing but I mean you could say winning, but just not at Georgia. If he were like the Max Duggan, or if he were playing somewhere else, is it more along the lines of, hey, this is a personal subjective, or are you truly being objective?
No, I think honestly it's subjective because of the fact that he's playing at Georgia, right? Okay. We know that he played at Georgia. So keep that in mind. But what I saw now, I think things play out differently in the combine. I think if he's not playing at Georgia, I think he would run the 40 a lot differently. I think you would actually see the effort there. And I think you would, you know what I mean? But overall, from what I saw at the combine, when you can be statistical and compare the numbers, or you can just watch the throws, I still feel like he could be big. And even wise, maybe not early day 3, but I still think there's a shot for him in the NFL because someone of his speed with his IQ, right? Watching him kind of understand read the defenses, things like that pre-snap it's vital, right? It's crucial. Being able to do that, being able to be elusive and still be able to make the throws. Now, what we saw at the combine, what we saw at Georgia is a lot different, but obviously taking the Georgia aspect out of it, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, so I know you were talking about statistically. So outside of Will Levis, who was in his group, do you know anybody else who was in that group and had other statistics?
Max Duggan, he did better than Max Duggan. But the question is Max Duggan going to be a draftable quarterback? I don't know.
No. Oh, okay. Well, outside of somebody that you don't know, like else in that group.
In that first group, the real 3 were those guys. The second group is where you had Stroud and Anthony Richardson go in that situation.
Okay, yeah, because a couple of those guys. So like Aiden O'Connell.
He was in the second group too. Yeah.
Was he in the second group? Well, then it was it was Hall, the Hall guy.
Yeah.
I mean, these are guys that are ranked ahead of him. But I was just wondering, is it? Again,
I'll tell you right now that he threw Stetson, at least from a deep ball perspective, Stetson on the deep ball threw it in that first group about literally better than everyone you could compare on the same level as Will Levis.
That doesn't get you drafted just because you can play deep ball.
What I was getting to though, not only that, but it was a lot like his throws and timing was crisp. Right, the receivers in that first group, they looked like they were running routes terribly, but that's something that you would probably look at nitpick there. But he threw the ball where it needed to be, and a lot of them were caught. Most all of his were caught. The timing, right? Because you have to understand what you see at college, what you saw at Georgia is not the same as what you're going to see in the NFL. Slightly different.
Like I said, it's on air, and like you said, to see him do stuff against. Like, it would have been interesting to see if he were on another team and played against Georgia, what it would have, what he would have looked like.
Oh, no, I mean, so obviously being super subjective, I still would give him maybe a mid to late 3rd round pick. Like I said, I think it's all going to be on the system or the team that feels like that he could be somewhat useful to them. You know what I mean? But again, when you this, NFL teams are also looking ahead to next year's quarterback class. And that's the one thing. If I'm a betting man, as we are, that's where I'm looking at is like, all right, now I can understand maybe a little bit why you don't draft him, but I think the fact that he's a winner, the fact that he's fast, he can run, and do all these things, and he's smart. ultimately, I think someone will take a shot. Now, the question is when and who. That's just my thought. Kenny Mack. Let's do Kenny Mack. Juan, what's your projection? Draftable? If so, what day?
I would say day 3. I think he's a day 3 guy. He's gonna be an absolute steal. Maybe in day 2, probably day 3. I see him as like a Dalvin Cook type guy. Sorry, who was it last?
James Cook went second round though too.
Yeah, second round. So I would say end of day 2. Possibly day 3. I just see him just being a steal for somebody.
This is also ahead of free agency, by the way. So this is why we're doing a post pro day, because it will give us time to see what the NFL is looking like at this point. The fact that Derrick Henry could be getting moved on from in Tennessee could make shockwaves. But I'm with you. I think day 3, but I think you might see early day 3 as well. Kearis Jackson, draftable or not? If so, what day?
I would say day 3 for Kearis Jackson.
I think I hate to say it, but I'm with you. But I think it might be a later day 3.
Yeah, later day 3. I just think that when it comes to being just a pure receiver, he doesn't necessarily stack up with the other guys, but his intangibles are great. I think he's going to be a great returner. I think he's going to be a great
special teams warriors. What's going to get him drafted?
Exactly. I think that's what's going to that's going to put him over the edge, and plus and his blocking, his ability to block.
That's undervalued. I feel like it's undervalued in today's NFL.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Darnell Washington.
Oh gosh, Darnell Washington. Before I would have said day 2. I could see him being a late day 1 guy. I think that he really, really showed himself. If anything, and I don't know how many people have actually had an opportunity to push a sled, but it's a nightmare. And
it is heavy.
And for you to sit there and move a sled, it's really, really tough. When they did that side by side comparison to the other tight ends that were invited to the combine, not just some side-by-side tight ends, but side-by-side tight ends that were, invited to the combines, to see him move that with the greatest of ease and see those guys kind of struggle a little bit. He's special. 4'6" as a tight end. They were measuring his hands, his wingspan, and they were just off the charts. I think his hands were the second most.
11 inches.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. That's
80. I think 88 was it 84, just over 84 inch wingspan too.
Wingspan. I mean, he's just
That's by the way, that's the largest wingspan recorded history of combine. Yeah. Second largest hands for a tight end.
Yep.
I'm with you. You know what? I think you see late day 1, maybe even early. And the reason why I say that is this: barring the same things change or nothing changes, barring something doesn't change, the Ravens at 22. Todd Monken there. They got Isaiah Likely, but if you pair him on the Ravens, I think the Ravens could be a landing spot for Darnell.
Mm-hmm.
But if the Ravens pass and they need something bigger, then you start to wonder, what about the Bengals? Because if the Bengals get him with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, that is a nightmare for the NFL.
Yep.
It's a nightmare. I'm just saying that right there. All right, moving on. Broderick Jones. Day 1. I'm saying early day 1.
Yeah, I mean, for him to run, being as big as he is, and for him to run, was it a 4.9?
4.97, I believe. Unofficial or official, actually 4.97.
I mean, that's ridiculous. That is, and just the physicality, everything that's involved. Did it say he started did he start all 22 games every game for the last 2 years? Was it? They were showing some stat. They were showing some stat at the combine.
I forgot this. I forgot the specific statistic.
Yeah, I do too. And they were just talking about just how outstanding he is. Yeah, he's definitely a day one guy.
Oh, I think you see him top 15 easily. I think he could be. Post combine, I think you could see him arguably go first tackle off the board.
Yeah, I want to
think
you're
looking at him and Paris Johnson. Him and Paris Johnson will arguably be the one or the first and second.
Yeah, because it was. I think they were saying that he didn't give up a sack. I think I forgot what the stat was. I should have.
Oh, he didn't give up a sack all 2022.
Okay, that's what it was. That's exactly okay. I knew it was 20. It had 22 in it. So
him and McClendon never gave up a sack.
That's crazy.
That's stupid.
And we're talking about, you're playing some elite level teams, and for you to do that, and I tell you what, if there were some that were going to be given up, I thought would have been against Kentucky. Kentucky's a physical team, offensively and defensively. You play Ohio State. You play all these great things. All these. Florida. You got LSU. You got all of these teams that you're playing week in and week out. Fast teams, good teams, physical guys. Tennessee, and you don't give up a sack. I just think that's outstanding.
Yeah, no doubt. We're not going to do Warren Erickson. We're going to move on to the defensive side of the ball. Nolan Smith.
Yeah. Let me just tell you, I see him being a day one guy. A 4.39. You're running faster than most receivers. You're running faster than most backs. You are. That is scary.
That's stupid speed.
And you've had, and I know, I get it. You're coming off of an injury, but you've had a complete year. So, to have all that wear and tear not be on your body, and for you to come in there fresh with just a whole different attitude, I just see him, for you to perform like that after, it just shows dedication, and it just shows heart. And he really wants to be in the NFL.
I want to say that he solidified a late first-round pick, but my problem is this. The fact that there are only 31 picks this year, you tie that in with someone wanting to trade up for that spot to get that fifth-year team option. That's the key right there. That's the difference. That's the reason why you see people trade up to get that last pick of the draft, first round. Do you see someone try to get a quarterback at the 31 spot? I don't necessarily know. I think you might see him go before that, just for the benefit of. I feel confident in saying that he could be a very, very early round or day two.
Yep.
I do. It would not surprise me if he's very late day one.
Yep.
Or maybe even mid to late. But for the sake of this, I feel more comfortable saying that I know he'll go early day two.
Yep.
But like I said, it will not surprise me one bit if he goes day one. Period. Robert Bill, what do you got?
Oh, man. I would say, he goes from being undrafted to, I would say, a day three guy.
I think it's a day three, but I think it might be a mid-day three. The measurables and the statistics that we saw, the 40 time and things like that, are going to help him get drafted. But you're taking a little bit of a pick. You're taking a little bit of a shot in the sense of you've got to get this guy a ton of reps.
Yep.
That's just what he needs. He doesn't have as much experience as you have, like a Nolan Smith or whatever, but the physical traits are there, and that to me in this day of NFL seems to be a reason to get you drafted. Let's see who else am I missing? Let's see, did that right there. Keely Ringo.
I would say a day two guy. I think he ran pretty fast at the combine. I just think a lot of his downside is just going to be his hips.
Honestly though, he didn't look terrible, but it still was it more fluid, right? Like that's where you're going to have, like you got to have to fit a niche for him in the NFL, because you don't want to sit there and watch him try to do that, because they'll turn the tape on.
Yeah.
Right, they'll turn the tape on, and that's where the tape can hurt you. In when you're not in pads, everything looks hunky dory. Right, like I said, he looked fine, but you still saw him make a couple drops on these drills and things like that. And I think if you're trying to solidify yourself, even the minute details of a drop are going to hurt you.
Yeah.
Not
If I were
necessarily
him,
hurt you, but you
yeah,
get what I mean.
if I were him, he probably should have ran and then waited to do his pro day for the other things, because again, you got you got the Illinois guy out there that's just, I mean, he's probably like the next Sauce Gardner.
Witherspoon is going to be, Witherspoon. His draft stock is skyrocketing.
Oh yeah, he's going to be the next Sauce Gardner. Then what's the guy from Penn State? I can't even think of his name.
Porter.
Yeah,
Joey Porter Jr.
I mean, you're out there with those guys. I mean, you just talk about fluid and just effortless. Those guys are just fluid and just effortless.
I will say this though, the one thing that I think will be very interested to note is I'm gonna be optimistic here, and if I'm wrong, so be it. I want to be wrong in the right way, in my opinion. I'm gonna go day one, but he wasn't nearly as hyped up as what he was before. He'll be in the back end. And the reason why I say I think he can still get drafted in the first round is 4.36 speed is 4.36 speed, and he might be able to up that at the pro day. 2, if he has a good pro day, I think that will solidify a first round. But in today's world, you always need to stockpile DBs. Mm-hmm. A fast DB, you can coach them up, but you cannot coach speed. That's recovery speed. That what we saw against Marvin Harrison Jr., that's 4.36 speed. Those things, that's stuff you can't teach.
Yeah.
Which is why, again, you look at the DBs for Florida, and it makes me wonder if they're going to get drafted, because 4.7 as a DB, whether it be safety or cornerback, that's slow.
Yeah, you're going to get, and I'm thinking of too, like you're going to have to.
That's not even for the nickel. Even for a nickel, that is terrible.
Yeah, you're having to guard the Jordan Jeffersons and the Jamar Chases of the world, and Cheetah and Waddle. I mean, you're sitting there having to guard these guys. I mean, if you're 4.7, you might as well. That it's going to be tough sledding for you.
Because it was Rashad Torrance and Trey Dean, right? Trey Dean's a safety, so give him a benefit of a doubt there. I think both were maybe safeties. I don't necessarily remember. But even then, even Brian Branch was arguably the best safety, and he ran a 4.52. That's not terrible for safety. But when you run mid 4.7s, that is a liability.
Yeah.
Pure liability, which leads me to the safety, Chris Smith. Chris Smith, what do you think?
Man. I'm gonna say early day 2. I'll give him an early day 2.
I think you see it mid day 2. I think the thing about it was, I say mid day 2 right now because I have the hope that he can run a fast 40 time.
Yeah.
Because the only thing that I had questions about coming into the combine was his speed. The tape shows everything you need to see. His tape sticks out in a good way. Size is what it is. And it wasn't necessarily the worst in the size department, right? Mm-hmm. But just the speed, you had to be speed. I think he ran like a low 4.6, I think it was. If I'm not. So if he gets that into the 4.5s, like mid 4.5s, if he can somehow get it to mid 4.5, give him the day 2 easily. Yeah. Easily.
What'll help him though? Instincts. Number one.
I mean, we saw this. We saw this with Nakobe Dean last year.
Yeah.
Instinct. You move. Nakobe Dean didn't run the 40 by design, but he's so fast on tape because he's so smart. There were times in what game was it? I forgot which one it was. Oh my God, was it Ohio State? Maybe. He was so smart that he was reading it too fast and hit the receiver, right, instead of timing it perfectly. He just read it too fast and he got there just a tad too early. If I'm a coach, a defensive coach in the NFL, I want that.
Yeah.
Because you need your safety to be smart. You need them to be the leader. And from an intellectual standpoint, there's no questioning that man's ability as a thinker, and his ability to fly and close to the ball is going to get him drafted early. But I think right now, upon his 40 time at pro day, I'm going mid second day.
Okay.
Who else? I think that was – did we miss anybody?
No, I think that was it.
Okay, there we go. Let us know what you think. Obviously, like I said, this is post combine. We will also do a post pro day. Things could change, folks. And like not just from Georgia's perspective, the NFL world will change by the time we do this again.
Yeah, well,
So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Um, and honestly, I think we're going to take that into context as well when we do our post pro day. We have to. But other than that, though, like I said, let us know in the comments what your thoughts are. Do you agree or disagree with our players? Listen, that was only the ones that we did that went to the combine. Okay, so maybe you see us do Warren Erickson after the pro day. We'll talk about it. But before we go, make sure to head over to dgdpodcast.com/Apotheos. Check out Apotheos Roastery, the official sponsor of the DGD podcast. 20% of every bag that you purchase going to our website will go towards the Classic City Collective. Obviously, Apotheos is the official coffee and cold brew partner of the Classic City Collective. That is the Georgia Bulldogs NIL. It covers all 21 sports. Juan, ultimately, to wrap this up, it was an excellent combine again. Day 1, day 4. Some ups, some downs. All right, we got to laugh at our nemesis down in Gainesville for being slow as molasses.
yeah.
Bama didn't look nearly as sharp as they were, and I'm not saying they didn't have Jahmyr Gibbs flying, but
Yeah.
Other than that, though, like it's fun to look at that Gator garbage down in Gainesville and it's like, haha, too slow.
Yeah, you guys are sorry, but I at least love the showing, and those guys, that are at the combine, and America gets to see why Georgia is so dominant year after year. And again, next year, we're going for a three-peat. I'm sorry, we're not going for a three-peat. We're going to have our three-peat. And then that next year's combine, when you talk about, again, seeing Brock Bowers, they're going to really be like, good freaking grief.
Carson Beck throwing the deep ball is going to be fun to watch.
Yeah. It's going to be outstanding.
Juan, are you going to – no, I'm getting way ahead of myself, but we're going to wrap it up on that after this. I'm thinking ahead. Carson Beck at the pro day, or not at the pro day, but at the combine. Are you going to be just jaw drop?
Yeah. You're going to hear it pop. It's going to be something. Like I said, it's just hard because you're throwing it on air, from a combine. But the pro day, that's what I want to see.
Well, I want to see that
one-on-one where he's fitting those passes in that small window.
Guess who threw for George Pickens last year?
Oh yeah,
Carson Beck at the pro day. He requested Carson Beck to be his quarterback.
Yeah.
So that tells me everything I need to know.
Yep. He is.
That means you're confident that Carson Beck can make every NFL throw.
Yeah.
Which also led you to extra eyes from an NFL perspective. It's the chess match, folks, not checkers.
Yes, sir. With
that being said, have a good day, sir. Everyone that's listening, watching at home, have a great day. We will be back here Wednesday. Maybe Swolders will be here again. Happy birthday, Swolders. With that being said, have a great day. We'll catch y'all next time. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.